If you would have told me that I would have been doing this 5 years ago,
You would have fought anybody.
I would have been like, hell no, I'm not technical in any way. I feel like I don't know anything about this.
Hey YouTube, it's Jenny and Laura, the creators behind That's How We Roll. And today we're here to talk about our first time creating a film series.
You may not have known this, but we are complete amateurs and we did not know what we were doing when we branched out to make this series. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about that and just share with you guys what it's been like.
So we've created this film series called That's How We Roll. And it's about traveling with a wheelchair and the ups and downs, the highs and lows, all the stuff in between, and more importantly, the people that we meet along the way and sharing the stories that we're creating with them as they're living their own stories.
I guess we have been sitting on the idea for a long time about That's How We Roll because it's been our lives. You know, this story that we're telling, this is really our lives. You know, we grew up in a family that loved to travel, and as when we were kids, we'd be going across the country. So it was like normal for us to go on these adventures and live this big life. But when we got to be adults, like young adults, and you said to me for the first time, like, let's go on a vacation, it was a daunting task. Like, I was nervous and I didn't know how we were gonna take all your wheelchairs and get you onto a plane and like what it was gonna be like on the other end. And those are things that I think a lot of people feel in general when they travel, and then like you factor in a disability or some kind of like little roadblock in the way. But Jenny's always encouraged us to travel, and whenever we do travel, we have the best times, and the things that are accessible and the things that she gets to do are like totally worth it, and you would never see them coming. So
we kind of started out recording it for our own record, and funny things would happen along the way, like the Hannibal chair, as I call it, which is an aisle chair in a plane, and how bizarre the whole thing is to get somebody out of a wheelchair into a chair narrow enough to fit down the aisle of a plane. And I'd turn on my cell phone and start recording because it was just all so bizarre.
We're documenting this for ourselves and for our friends and for our family to show them, like, how funny is this? Jenny could actually do it though, like whether it was getting on a ferry or going up 600 feet on a sky ride. I mean, like all these things that we were doing.
It was 200 feet.
No, only 200 feet.
But never really intending to do anything with those videos, just like show a friend and say, look at this, like, is this real life? And
Right.
I feel like every time that we did share stuff like that, people were like, huh. Nobody believes the constant spectacle that traveling with a disability can be. And so the phrase popped into my head that was so often said by friends that we'd be traveling with when we would run into different obstacles. That's how we roll. We just handle it. That's how we roll. And I said, combined with the fact that we're always saying that should have been on film, this makes for a really good concept for a series. And so the idea became more than just our story. It was like, okay, let's share it. Let's not just go through it and document it for the purpose of like looking at it and laughing, but maybe let's share this.
There was definitely a purpose and a message that we wanted to bring forth and that we wanted to share. And then we just didn't really know how we were going to do that.
We thought when you have an idea, you pass it on to somebody else and they do something about it.
I thought that's how things worked. If you were creative enough to come up with an idea, then somebody else would produce it. Somebody would take care of all of it.
And that made a lot of sense to us for a while, just because it was the accepted norm. And
because we'd never done anything like this before.
And because we don't know really anybody who has done anything like this before. I don't know anybody who's made a documentary series without a production company.
Who just is like, I'm gonna make a film, and then goes out there and does it.
I didn't go to school for that, and I don't really know anybody who did, and I don't know anybody in Hollywood. So where did I get this crazy idea that I wanted to get a Hollywood creative director and shop for an agent? I'm not sure. It just seemed the prevailing wisdom, but we started pitching it in the most official way we could think of. We started sending out letters. We started trying to connect with agents. We registered everything officially.
Right.
All the while thinking it needs to go through these channels. And it went so far as a production company that's done a number of really interesting documentaries picked it up.
Yep.
It was so exciting as somebody who'd never done anything like that before for us to be in on this. Yeah, and it felt like it was becoming real at that point. But then, as is oft the case in the production world, it was dropped.
For me, like when that happened, when the production company dropped us, I lost all the wind under my wings.
Oh, totally. It knocked the wind right out of our sails.
I was like, this is done.
And their advice to us was to shelve it. They were like, you know what? Put this on the shelf for a few years, and when the time is right, we might consider picking it back up, and
they'll let us know.
Like, no hard feelings, guys, but you don't shelve your life story. Like, it just felt very...
I was very discouraged by the whole, it's a wrap, we don't want to consider you anymore. And I think that discouragement stayed with us for a while, at least a whole season.
It did. Fast forward a couple years and we had shelved it.
Our dad had always been telling us, he had actually made a couple of films in his younger life.
On actual film?
Yes, and so he was always just like, if you want to do something, like, you're going to be the one who does it. So, and in the midst of all this happening, he bought us our first handheld video camcorder. And, we didn't hardly even use it, like, for the first year that we had it, because we were just, I don't know if it was intimidation or disappointment or whatever it was.
I kept saying to my dad, like, I don't know what the quality is going to be like. I just feel like it won't be that good. And he said, so what? Just do it. Is it going to be better if it doesn't exist?
Right.
And one day I was visiting with a friend of ours, and he said to me about a project of his that he has so much passion for and he's been working on forever. And he said he had taken a break from it for real reasons, like he had stuff going on. And then there came a point where he just had to say, am I taking a break or am I languishing? And it was just like, bam, it hit me. And I realized I'm languishing. Like, I have let this project drop and it's still going on, but it's not being in any way creatively produced or manifest.
Things just move you forward. And that's what happened in that conversation with our friend, talking about projects and what you're trying to create and what you're passionate about. And we took that step past sitting back and shelving our idea, so to say, to like being like, what's it gonna hurt if we just do it?
And start shooting it. And so with that, the ball started rolling, and we recruited friends, and we planned a trip, and we took the trip, and we paid people off in French fries to hold the camera while we went swimming. Like, legit, that is what happened with episode 1 of That's How We Roll.
Yep.
And somehow the things that we always talked about, like the unexplainable magic of traveling and the people that you meet and the stories that you get to be a part of, just started happening all around us. And miraculously, we caught it on film and we started to piece it together. We got some editing software. At first, not the greatest editing software, and then slightly better editing software. And mind you, our first episode is not pro quality. Our second episode is probably still not pro quality, but...
Well, episode 1 is really interesting because it was completely amateur. I mean, we had our handheld camcorder and we had our friends, all of whom had never held a camera before, who had never actually been videography, cinema, video, what's the word?
They'd never done any of that stuff before.
They were complete amateurs just like us. So when we were out there doing things, like, it was new to all of us, and
there wasn't one professional person on board, the whole team.
We didn't even think about things like sound or the fact that wind would affect, everything with a microphone and that we needed a dead cat. We didn't think about reflectors. We didn't think about anything. We were like just doing what we were thinking we should do because we didn't know anything any better.
Yeah, we didn't know what to do. So we just went out with the gear that we had and we were like, you know what? If we don't do it, it's not going to get done. So if it's meant to be, then it'll just flow. And it did. And that was so encouraging.
And that's how the first episode was done, just like flying by the seat of our pants. But then the people that were seeing it and the message that we had been trying to get out the entire time was actually blooming, and the results that we were hoping for were happening. One of our friends who uses a wheelchair had seen our first episode, saw Jenny surfing, saw the Access Surf organization, and was like, I want to attend that. He took a trip to Hawaii. He went swimming for the first time in 35 years, and he's planning to do it again this winter. So like our little bit of impact and the story that we told made such a huge difference in somebody's life that they would go swimming after 35 years because they were inspired by us showing what could be. And I think that that is what has been driving us, even though we didn't know what we were going to be doing, even though we didn't know how we were going to be doing it. It all came together because the mission and the statement and the empowerment behind saying to somebody like, live your best life. You have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to do this stuff because it's so awesome and you have such a great time.
And that goes for what's in front of the camera and also behind the camera, as our experience has been. You know, it's been like pushing the limits and going out on that limb for us to travel and to have the experiences that you see being documented, but then also like on the next level for us to be documenting them and making the content, you know, creating these films. And so yeah, it's been amazing to hear from people what they thought of our first and second films, but particularly that first one, when we realized, okay, there is something to this notion that when you tell your story, it does things for people and it builds people up and it makes things that they didn't see clearly more clear for them. So that is the driving force behind. That's how we roll.
It's always the hardest things that might turn out to be the best. So, you know, you might be really intimidated when you start out doing something like traveling or like making a film, and then all of a sudden it turns into something that is really beautiful. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I imagined that we would be self-producing, writing, directing a docuseries,
and starring in
a docuseries, I would never have thought that this was going to be the path that we would take. What started out as one idea that we thought was going to just like take it off and go flying with turned into something a little bit different and in a way that we never expected, with not a production company, but ourselves leading the charge.
Yeah, I mean, concept to completion, we never saw it coming, never saw it getting to this place. And although we had this idea from the very start to share our story and uplift people with our own experiences going through the ups and downs of traveling with a disability, we had that from the start. We just didn't know how to make it into this thing that it is now. And to be honest, we still don't know. You know, we're still feeling it out as we go along. We've got our friends on board and we can't wait to see what's next because it can only get better from here. And we hope that you're gonna stay tuned as we continue on our journey. Follow along. All our content is below. And if you subscribe, you can see all the latest and greatest. Click the bell and you'll get notified every time we post something new. Stay tuned, stay connected, and we'll talk to you next time.